Διευκόν των Αγίων Πατέρων ημών, Κύριε Ιησού Χριστέ ο Θεός, ελέησον και σώσον ημάς.
Amen.
I'm so glad to see all of you today. I feel like I have a full church today. So nice to have everybody here. But I do want to say a word today, actually two words. One is about St. Maximus, the Confessor. His actual years when he lived, I'm not sure, but I think it was in the 600s. And of course, at that time, what was the controversy? It's hard to follow Orthodox history, but if you only know a little bit, it gets very confusing. But the more you study it, you fit all the pieces together. So basically, we dealt with Arianism. Is Jesus Christ God? Yes, he is God. We settled that. Arianism was put to shame. And then comes the question, well, can we call the Virgin Mary Theotokos? And in other words, is Jesus Christ God in the womb? Well, again, the church said, of course he's God in the womb. So of course you can call the Virgin Mary Theotokos, and you should. So that was settled. And then of course, there is a division among the, what we now call the Monophysites, or they call themselves the Miaphysites, who said that, wait a minute, Jesus' his human nature, according to what we accused them of at the time, I don't think they still hold that, but anyway, what was the Orthodox position against the Monophysites was that they believed that God's humanity was absorbed into the divinity, that there was no distinction ultimately, and so that was a controversy too. And the church said, no, he is fully God and fully man. He has two natures, and they're equal natures, a divine and a human. And so that was somehow settled, but it wasn't settled. And so the debates raged on, and then the final question, which was the Sixth Ecumenical Council, did Jesus Christ have one will, only a divine will, or did he also have a human will? And you say, well, that seems like a strange question. Of course he only had one will. He was God's only son. He was the only begotten Son of God. Of course he had a divine will. Except that the church, that is to say, St. Maximus the Confessor, said, wait a minute. If Jesus Christ didn't have a human will, he wasn't human. He had to have a human will. Yes, but then if he had a human will, isn't he also then another distinct person? In other words, is he a human person and a divine person melded together? Or is he one person? And that's, I know, seems a little bit complex, but that was the question. In other words, is Nestorius right in that Jesus is some human that God inhabited? Or is God become man in Jesus Christ, which is, of course, the Orthodox teaching? And so St. Maximus had to come out very strongly and say, yes, even though it's the same person, the divine person, Jesus Christ only has one identity, but still he had a human will. And he had to have a human will because if he didn't have it, then the human will that he assumed couldn't have been healed. And all of us couldn't have had our wills healed because our wills are healed. Everything about us is healed in and through Jesus Christ. So St. Maximus said, no, there were two wills in Christ, and he explained in very complex theological language that Jesus Christ, although he had two wills, you would never have known it because his human will was always submitted to the divine will. There was never a moment when it wasn't submitted, but nonetheless it existed. So you say, well, okay, that's over my head. Who needs to know that? But at that time, it was such a difficult controversy because the empire was putting pressure on all of the theologians to accept the one will theory so that the Nestorians and the Monophysites and everybody could all get along. And we could just end all of the controversies and all be one church again and forget about making a big issue about theology. Who knows what theology is anyway? Let's just throw it all away. And just as long as we all can get along because we need to be one, there's wars to deal with, there's people attacking us, we've got to stick together. Let's forget theology for now. Well, St. Maximus didn't agree with that. He said, if God didn't assume the human will, then the human will can't be saved. And then if Christ didn't come to save us, what did he come for? He had to come to save us. That's his only purpose. So he had to assume the human will. So what did the empire do? They cut out his tongue. And I don't know, they might even have cut off his hand. I don't remember that part. And they said, essentially, again, I'm speaking rough language here. They told him, shut up. Shut up. Quit teaching. Now, how can he teach? He's missing a hand, he's missing a tongue. But his writings remained. Now, did he die from those wounds? No. That's why he's called St. Maximus the Confessor and not St. Maximus the Martyr. He didn't die, but he suffered for Christ. And why did he do that? You say, well, he was one person. Everybody was willing to agree to this other teaching, which is not what the Orthodox Church holds now, except for Maximus, who wasn't even a bishop. He said, no, you're making a mistake. But he was so correct that they couldn't refute his wisdom. And so even though it took time, at the sixth, actually the seventh confirmed it, but the sixth ecumenical council said, St. Maximus is right. Jesus Christ had a human will. It was always submitted to the divine will, but it's a will nonetheless. And we have to acknowledge that, because otherwise the human will that we have, that all of us have, can't be saved. Jesus Christ truly became man in all of the complexities of a human being without sin in order to save us. So that's St. Maximus the Confessor, and we have to honor him. The other person who comes to my mind, and this is the second word I want to tell you, is I want to remember Metropolitan Maximus Ayurgosis, who passed away about 2 years ago. He did consecrate this altar. He was the temporary locum tenens of the metropolis of Detroit when this church here was consecrated. And he came and he put on the savanon, the white garment, and he put the relics into the holy altar and walked around the altar and anointed the icons with the holy myrrh. And this was a church that he blessed. So we all should remember him and remember his part in this church's history. But what do I remember about him? I remember him as a man of tremendous gentleness, always smiling, a ready joke or a twist of words on his tongue to make us laugh, and great spiritual insight and great compassion for those who sin, although he himself was really a blameless person. I don't know that we can ever think of any sin that he might have done. He lived completely devoted to God, but he was very patient and very understanding to the difficulties and sins of others, and loved everyone. And he made that his whole life. And he really was, at least from my eyewitness perspective, he was like a martyr for the church in America, because he never stopped traveling from parish to parish to parish, driving his own himself, showing up, exhausted from the long drive, and then quickly putting on his vestments and coming in to serve, and then having a very long sermon afterwards, and always very erudite. He was one of these people. When I was your age, Sava, and I was just a young man, I'm listening to him speak in these words I never heard of before. And I'm going to throw one out. Anomic will. I know, what's an anomic will? I don't know what he was talking about. Anyway, whatever he might have said, I would scratch my head, but he never talked down to us. He always assumed that we could understand him. That if we just tried a little harder, our minds could be open enough to learn what it was that he wanted to share with us. So he produced quite a few theologians out of his metropolis, people who really strained to grow and to comprehend the things that he said. I don't think any of us ever reached his heights, but maybe the closest that's come, I'll tell you later who that is. But anyway, there's some maybe who got close, but most of us, at least we knew enough to know that he was a wise man, and what a holy man he was. So I want to remember him today, and I will hopefully always remember him. He's the one who ordained me, both as a deacon and a priest. And I will tell you this, even though he's been gone 2 years, he's still visiting people and appearing to people in dreams, and still instructing and directing the church. He hasn't stopped doing that. And so we are blessed to have such a holy hierarch from our church. He grew up at Chios, I didn't tell you that, but anyway, that he still intercedes for us. So may we have his holy prayers. Thank you for coming today. And we don't have St. Maximus as icon, but we have St. Euphemius from Saturday, so if you want to honor. And then we'll see you tomorrow, Prototheos. Ευχαριστώ for the chanters. Thank you to the chanters for chanting today.